Hi everyone, your local hipster here, and it's time for another installment in our retrospective review series. I do these once a month. This month, we are going to be talking about the 1997 Elliott Smith album, Either Or. Either Or is the third studio album from singer-songwriter and multi-instrumentalist Elliott Smith. It is also his most celebrated album amongst fans and critics alike. Elliott Smith was known around Oregon, where he lived, but this was the album that kind of made him break through, and his last album under the Kill Rock Stars label based out of Oregon before he went to DreamWorks in New York and then LA to work on his next album, XO. An album that doesn't see the same kind of recording style that Either Or has, mainly because it's DreamWorks and because they have high fidelity recording over there. Now, low fidelity recording is an interesting way to describe this album because it's not one of the most lo-fi records I've ever heard, but it's not as sharp or as pristine as a lot of the other records in the indie folk singer-songwriter realm. The track Speed Trials, the song that starts this album off, is probably the lowest fidelity recording that's on this entire record, as it was recorded on a 4-track cassette, and the limitations that recording style has gives the song a eerie, chilling vibe. Some gentle guitar notes with these dejected vocals that are so whisper quiet you can barely hear what he is saying. Like most of the songs on this record, there are only a few spots here and there where Elliott's vocals kind of shine through amongst the instrumentation. However, like a lot of this record, everything's quiet, everything's subtle, everything's gentle. Maybe with the exception of a few songs here and there, maybe the song Cupids Trick, which is probably one of the most visceral songs Elliott Smith has ever recorded. There's a little bit of a grunginess to the song too, but at the core of this song, there's still a message. There's still poetic lyricism, like on the song Angeles or 2:45 a.m. No Name Number 5, really all of the songs on this record have very poetic lyrics. And just like the rest of this album, the lyrics don't jump out at you all that much on first listen. This is a very shy record, and in a way, once you get comfortable with this album, and I guess once this album gets comfortable with you, this album starts to reveal itself. You start to notice little subtleties that you would have never caught on to on first listen, like how the song Ballad of Nothing or the track Rose Parade kind of have a similarity between them. Vaguely, but it's there. The track Alameda could be talking about the street in Oregon or the city in California. Or the track Between the Bars, which could either be Elliott Smith talking to himself in his head, or the alcohol talking to Elliott Smith in his head. Which isn't such a surprise since Elliott Smith, when he was alive, had a problem with drinking and drugs. ADHD and major depressive disorder was also something he had to deal with. And that's something you can kind of tell when you really read into the lyrics on this album. Like on the track Between the Bars, you get the second verse of this thing, drink up baby, look at the stars, I'll kiss you again between the bars, where I'm seeing you there with your hands in the air, waiting to finally be caught, so on and so on. It's the same kind of mentality that an addict would have with their alcohol or with their drug of choice. It's really something to escape the mindset that this person is trapped in constantly. A mindset that is echoed on the track No Name Number 5. Got bitten fingernails and a head full of the past, and everybody's gone at last. A sweet, sweet smile that's fading fast, cause everybody's gone at last. The lyrics on this record are not too vague to the point where it doesn't mean anything, but they're not so esoteric to the point where they only mean something to one person. They fit comfortably in the middle, that they can appeal to anyone who's listening, they can kind of have a personal connection to anyone who's hearing it. But it is interesting to note that there is also a tone to many of the songs on this record. The lyrics can have a very stark and self-hatred tone to them. They can also just be very depressive, they can also just be very melancholic, introspective as well. But at the end of the day, this album in its entirety, lyrically, is very poetic, and Elliott himself is a very poetic person, with lyrics like got a broken heart and your name is on my cast, to you're such a pinball, yeah, you know it's true, there's always something you go back running to follow the path of no resistance, or Angeles, which is, as a whole, is beautifully constructed, a song about the music industry and how hellish it can be. There's so much more to talk about lyrically on this album, But I think another thing that is to talk about with this record is the instrumentation and the production behind it. Not low fidelity to the point where it's crushing and so distorted, but not so cleanly produced. This has like a scuzzy feel to it, but it's not so dirty to the point where it feels like wiping off dust off of a box. Simple instrumentation that works in favor with Elliott's lyrics all come together so beautifully in this very tantalizing release. An album that's so hard-hitting the more you go back to it, and every time I'm finished listening to this record, I'm asking myself, who the hell is cutting onions? A great album that needs to be listened to. It's a record that's just beautifully haunting, and not to be crass or not to be callous or anything like that, but it's kind of weird, or I don't want to say ironic or funny, but it's interesting to note that Elliott Smith's lyrics for most of his albums were so open-ended, were so vague, and the way he passed away is also similarly open-ended, because when he died, and even to this day, his death is still an open case for the LAPD. Is it a homicide? Is it a suicide? No one but Elliott knows, and I guess that's where I'll end this review off. This is an album that was essentially Elliott's album, like all of the other albums, but I feel like this was the most personal to Elliott. And that's why it's such a good record that is a must listen. Listen to this thing. And listen to it a few times, actually, because this album won't grip you on first listen, and if it does, you're one of the lucky ones. But for me personally, it took a while for me to really digest this album. But once I did, I realized its stark beauty and its poetic genius that Elliott only could do. So yeah, Elliott Smith, Either Or, beautiful record, haunting record with a lot of eerie, chilling, but beautifully constructed atmospheres that are so simple, yet so intricate. I'll leave it off on that. I can't not say enough nice things about this record. Give it a shot, listen to it. I hope you enjoy. Leave a like, comment, share, do whatever you want. Let me know how I can improve future videos down below. And remember, this is only my opinion because music is subjective.